There's, I'm ready when you go.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get started. I'd like to officially call to order the Madison County Planning Commission business session for June the 19th, 2018 to order, and ask our secretary to call roll.
Chris Hager.
Here.
James Keaton. Paula Bianchi.
Here.
Robert Farmer.
Here.
Shannon Pennington.
Here.
Doug Fritz. Alan Hatfield.
Here.
Okay, let the record show we do have a quorum, and our first order of business is minutes of the April 17th meeting. Everyone should receive a copy of the minutes in the packet. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes as received? If not, we'll have a vote.
Motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Shannon Pennington.
Yes.
Robert Farmer.
Yes.
Paula Bianchi.
Yes.
Chris Hager.
Yes.
Okay, next order of business is a preliminary plat extension for Indigo Run. Marty?
Yeah, this is a extension for Indigo Run for Jim Carr. This is something he does once a year. The project's so big, he has just completed the road and several houses on phase 6, and the only thing that's left would be phase 7, which is, he has not built the road yet or anything, he's wanting an extension on that.
Phase 7 will be his last phase.
He's requesting a year because it doesn't say.
Yes, well, that's what he always does ask for, yes.
Make a
Okay.
motion, we accept the request for a 1-year extension on the preliminary plat for Indigo Run.
Okay, we have a motion to approve this extension on Indigo Run. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Shannon Pennington.
Yes.
Robert Farmer.
Yes.
Paula Bianchi.
Yes.
Chris Hager.
Yes.
Okay, next order of business, minor plat for 2218 Old Wilderness Road. Marty, you want to bring this up to
This
speed?
is, yeah, this is minor plat presented by Mr. Brent Gray on Old Wilderness Road, which is, was included in the Overlook subdivision, but is not part of the Overlook Drive. You see the Overlook Drive is to the right there. Brent's house is the 2218 with the circle driveway, and where the little pad is, you see, is a proposed, well, he was gonna build something there, but he's not now. But now he wants to split that lot in half, sell his house and build him another house at 2200. He has got Mr. Mike Eves' signature, he's the developer. He's got Mr. Jack Taylor's signature on the plat, that's a next door neighbor down the hill there. 2220, whatever that says.
Mr. Eves came to the commission and
Eves
talked
came
to us
and-
about this
yes.
situation, and
He's on
we told him
board
what he
with it.
needed to do.
That's correct. He's presented a minor plat, and I guess Dwayne's here with the advocates that's representing him, but you need to talk with him.
He's done everything we asked him to do when
He
he
has
presented to us.
got the signatures and actually did one a step farther and ended up having they had a transaction, so.
Okay, there was no waiver of any kind, no waiver request.
Dwayne?
No.
Okay, is there any comment or question either commission members have?
We have received no objections
No
from
objections.
the community that is way up on the other side of
No,
that
ma'am.
brush line.
Any other question, comment?
I see no reason why we don't go ahead and proceed.
Okay, I'll open the floor for a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve this minor plat for, the Wilderness Trail, 2218 Old Wilderness Trail property owned by Brent and Chassie Ray.
Okay,
And
have a motion to approve this minor plan. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Robert Farmer.
Yes.
Paula Bianchi.
Yes.
Chris Hager.
Yes.
Shannon Pennington.
Yes.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Okay, next order of business is a site development plan for the Okanite Company, 1740 Berea Road.
Okanite Company is with Denham Life is representing themselves with, they wanna add an extra pad for the real outside storage. It's just a site preparation. They're not ready to complete the pad. They just wanna get it where it needs to be, as far as level, gravel on it. They have, give us drainage calculation. They got a representative here from, in Blythe, if you'd like to speak with him.
Okay. Sir, would you like to come up and state your name and address for the record? Since this is a public meeting, we probably need to go ahead and discuss a little bit what you talked about at the work session, please.
Adam Robinson with the Denham Blythe Company, and we're 100 Trade Street, Lexington.
Okay. Just tell a little bit about, so the people in the audience will know what's going on.
What we're looking at doing with Okanite is they store all their reels outside and need more space. So this is the site preparation for 50,000 square feet of exterior storage. We're going to prepare the site, put the stone down, and then we'll concrete it at a later date.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments at any of them?
I just had a question of, maybe Marty can answer this.
Okay.
At this point in time, they do not need the signatures of utility, Delta Gas, AT&T, et cetera.
We will need them before Chairman signs it.
For the.
Yes, we will need them.
I noticed that there's nothing there.
Yeah, yes, they,
Yeah, but you do not have those, so that'll have to be a contingency of approval.
yeah, there has to be a contingency of.
Okay.
But you can see there on the, there's the two, well, this picture does not show that what you all had already done. It's this side of the parking lot, correct?
It is. It's on the south side. You've got the water tower. If you go just to page right of the water tower towards the east, you see a grouping of trees there with some green space. Yes, sir. We're going to take probably 2/3 of those trees out, and then our concrete pad will abut the adjoining pad.
And all the drainage will stay on the property.
It will. All the drainage is going to go to the west side of the property towards the rear, which gets it into those trees and all that green space before it hits the stream back by the railroad track.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments? Is there anyone in the audience here has a concern about the site plan? Okay, if not, then I'll open the floor for a motion.
I move that we approve the Okanite plan for the 50,000 square foot preparation for the pad, contingent on all the appropriate signatures on the plan.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the site development plan with the contingency of the signatures. Is there any other comments? Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Shannon Pennington.
Yes.
Paula Bianchi.
Yes.
Robert Farmer.
Yes.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Chris Hager.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Next order of business is Emmanuel Baptist Church, 1138 Paint Lick Road, Berea, Kentucky. Mr. Webb, if you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Jay Webb, Central Kentucky Land Surveying, Berea, Kentucky.
Okay, Marty?
Jay, you come to us for the work session, and we had some, I guess, some issues or points we wanted to address. I'll save the fire hydrant to last.
Right.
We can talk about that later. But the parking, he's got 25 additional spots, that's what we asked for. He got a drainage plan, which he's got a new drainage plan today.
We have amended that, here are the new calculations, Marty. We just found a better location, there's a lot of utility relocates going on in the area we first proposed, and it'd be better to move it over to the east side of the property, there's more
You can
than
see it on the map there,
space.
1138, where's it at, Jay? on there?
We're going to, if you're looking at the plan you have in front of you, it's going to the east property line, just east of the existing parking. There's an area of trees shown there, over by the Chester Powell property, track 2. It's still adequate size. The majority of the retention is for the proposed parking area. The building addition is such a small amount of increased runoff, it doesn't affect much at all, so.
And the proposed again is back in the back left corner, existing parking lot to the left of it, or to the north of it.
The proposed addition, or
No, the parking area.
proposed park, yes, to that back right, there's a separate square up in that back right corner of the trees. They've already graded that,
Right.
slate rock bank, they've got it
Showing a
graded
separate
down.
track there.
Yeah, it's shown as a separate tract on that map, yes. not sure why it's a separate tract on that map. In
Yeah.
reality, it's all the same property, so. We have a proposed landscaping island. We're losing 5 parking spaces total with this new addition. We'll propose landscape island, kind of divide that out, keep it separated. If you look, we have inner site statistics. The proposed addition's 5,035 square feet, but we're tearing off 2,555 of existing building to be replaced. So just a net gain of 2,480 square feet. So, and the majority of that is existing parking area. So that's why I'm saying our proposed retention is more for this proposed parking area up in that right rear than for the addition itself. Marty, I think we've met everything. We have.
The only thing is the fire hydrant.
Right.
You had a
Yes, sir.
statement
Yep.
from the fire
Right, that's
department.
the next,
Yeah, we have requested a variance. There's a written variance, and then if you read on our drawing, we've explained why. We have gotten with the county fire chief, who ultimately signs this plan because it's in the county. He's okay with it, because it's an existing structure. He said they're fighting the fire the same way they would be. He asked us to also check with the Berea fire chief, because he's gonna be the first responder. Even though it's in the county, he's the first guy on the scene. So we talked with Chief Sandlin also. He agreed that it's an existing structure, nothing's changing. And we have put a note on the variance and the plat. There's only a 4-inch water line across this property. The nearest fire hydrant is 1,480 feet from the building, which is only around 1,200 or so from our property line. Going back to the northeast, the Dollar General store, I don't know if anyone's familiar where that is, that's fairly new, a few years old. That's where the 6-inch water line ends. So we have a note upon extension of a 6-inch line that will provide fire flow. The church will put a fire hydrant within 500 feet of the building upon that extension, but surely someday that'll come.
Okay. Is there any-
and I have spoke with the fire chief of Madison County, and he confirmed the same thing that Jason said.
Okay. Does anyone else have, anyone on the commission have any questions?
You submitted a written waiver.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience here to address this site improvement plan? Okay, if not, then I'll open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the site development plan for the Emmanuel Baptist Church, 1138 Paint Lick Road, Berea, Kentucky. Understanding of the granting the waiver of the fire hydrant location.
Okay. We have a motion to approve with the condition of the waiver. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll say.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Shannon Pennington,
Yes.
Paul Bianchi,
Yes.
Alan Hatfield,
Yes.
Chris Hager,
Yes.
Robert Farmer.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Next on the agenda is the Joyful Life Ministries, 1421 Goggins Lane.
Dwayne Wheatley, Agnes Engineering, 236 Boggs Lane, Richmond.
Okay.
This is for Joyful Life Ministries out of Goggins Lane, near the intersection of Goggins and Takes Creek. Our big issue, I guess, at our work session was about the fire hydrant. So me and Pastor McGee met with Chief Gray. He gave us 2 or 3 different options we could look into. And the option we chose was to build a pond that held water. And we're putting a hydrant in there where they can connect to pump the water from the pond in case of a fire, So, we have Chief Gray's signature on the plat with his approval. He said that he needed 35,000 gallons to fight a fire, minimum of 35,000. The pond we're designing is for right at 54,000 gallons. So
Where is this pond?
I can give you a sheet to show you.
Yeah, we're gonna put some type of a standpipe that they can hook onto and be able to retrieve the water out of the pond.
That's a pond.
Yeah, and the ponds out of all the gas easements and everything.
So this
Either
would be
way.
a lined pond, so it's not continuously sedimentating in.
Right, and we have no streets around it or anything like that. So, yeah, we can put protection around it or whatever to keep sediment. But all it is,
I'm worried
it's
about
just a
filling
field.
it with sediment. I mean, this is-
So this will just be used to fill the tankers if they need
Right.
additional water from the truck.
That's correct, yeah, that was, he gives that option, or the option, of course, of running the water line back up, even though we're into here, he tried to work with us all he could. And they come up with another system that I hadn't heard of, but this is, or sprinkling the building was the other system.
If
Other
they,
idea.
if and when they develop the property across the road, they'll probably have to run a 6-inch line there so they can tie in a
Yeah.
fire hydrant.
Which I would presume that would probably come into the city since they got a big 16-inch water main
Yeah.
running on the interstate there on the hangar property.
Okay.
When did you try to get hold of Madison County Road Department for the entrance?
Yeah, and he's fine with that. It's
So we still got to grant a waiver on fire hydrant, right?
And you got the signature lines for the road department now?
Right. The only, our biggest remaining issue that I'm aware of is, which we haven't been able to get hold of the gas people in Houston, I think's where it is. We've tried for a week to get in touch with them. They haven't returned our calls or anything yet. So we still will need their approval. So we'd like to get past contingent upon getting their approval on it.
Is that the only approval that you need, that you haven't got?
Yeah. But we gotta get Mr. Clark to sign the plat too, Madison Utilities.
And utilities?
They wouldn't be asking for a waiver on the fire hydrant, they would just be, supplementing that with the pond.
Yes. I don't know what the proper word for it is.
You have something in writing from the fire chief designating the pond and the standpipe and the gallons in the pond and all of that.
We just have his signature on the plat, is all.
Does the plat show anything about?
And we put the note on there about him requiring a minimum of 35,000 gallons. So we have that note on there, and we show the fire department connection at the pond.
You said it was gonna be 50.
So we don't have to give you a waiver?
Case
No,
of
it's actually
evaporation.
supplemented with
Here don't have none of that.
But they know the levels when they're up and down, so.
So the fire department will sign off on that note saying the 35,000 gallon pond.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think you have different plats than what we have, ours don't have pond on there.
Yeah, so if we vote on this, tonight, it'll have to be contingent, the,
We're all
fire
sig-
department signature and the note, and also Tennessee Gas.
Yeah, the gas is the big thing, yeah. Yeah, like I said, the fire chief's already signed the plans.
It'll be all signatures, not just the fire chief.
Right.
Right, okay. Okay, any other questions or concerns? If not, is anyone in the audience here to address this, site development plan for Joy Life Ministries? Okay, if not, then I'll open the floor for a motion.
I make a motion, we accept the site development plan for Joyful Life Ministry property at 1421 Goggins Lane, pending, all the signatures for the utilities and, the fire.
Okay, have a motion to approve those contingencies, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Have a motion and second, any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Chris Hager,
Yes.
Paul Bianchi, Robert Farmer,
Yes.
Shannon Pennington,
Yes.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Thank you much.
Okay. Next order of business is proposed changes to the text of Madison County land use and subdivision regulations, and I think our county attorney will be addressing those issues, so. Julie, if you'd like to come forward.
Am I the last thing on the agenda?
Yes, you are.
Y'all real excited about
Yeah.
those textual changes before you leave.
I don't think they're leaving because you got up there.
Believe me, it always makes my heart warm. When I get up to speak and everybody leaves, I know I'm doing it right. I think we had a work session last month or so, and some of these textual changes were talked about and discussed a little bit. After that, Bert has met with Judge Taylor. And I was at a meeting with Judge Taylor and Bert talking about what y'all discussed, as well as some things that y'all didn't discuss that they wanted to suggest as well. After that, I got a few emails. I met with Bert a few times, tried to put together some suggestions or some possible land use regulation text changes. These are not things that are coming from the fiscal court. It's important to know the statutory scheme is for proposed land use changes. They can come from the fiscal court, they go in front of you guys make a recommendation, they go back to the fiscal court, or they can originate from you. These would be originating from the administrative staff here as proposed land use textual changes. There's 4 Roman numerals, and I want to kind of talk about each one of these. What I've been suggested, what I would suggest are easiest to hardest.
Okay.
Start with number 2 if we could.
Okay.
I think this is something y'all discussed at a work session and had to do with, I believe, changing the text of section 4026, business services, to make mini warehouses a permitted use in the UC 41C zone. I believe there was quite a bit of discussion about that. Many warehouses out on the interstate, and administrative staff believed this was sort of what y'all talked about. So that's something you could talk about now to the degree you want to, and I guess you could consider that for a vote if you decide that you want to vote on it. I want to say I'm neither advocating nor an opponent of any of these changes. I'm simply trying to clarify these for the board. So if you have any questions, that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to urge you to take any action at all. Just here to help.
And I guess our office is advocating for these changes.
Yes.
Just by the people who come to our office wanting to do these things, specifically this number 2 with mini warehouses in the UC I-4. We have had that a couple of times now. We've had to do a zone change to get one out in this recent past. We have another person wanting to propose one. It's I guess it's our offices with the county judge's office, as we speak back and forth, that we can't specifically say that's addressed in that zone with those criteria they give us, what you can do in that zone. There's some
So
gray area.
this change would be simply put a P.
Yes, put
P
permitted under.
that use in the UC 41C zone, if that is.
And it's specifically called it mini warehouse. It's not being real vague about it.
But to be clear about what you're actually, since this is not a proposal that originated with fiscal court, if you took no action on this, or you decided you did not want to recommend this change, it would just disappear. If it had come from fiscal court would then act based on your recommendation or your not recommendation. Anyway, this won't go to fiscal court if you don't take action on it in favor of it. So
Jubal, what is the definition of a mini warehouse?
I don't know. I don't know if it's,
What
if
is
it's,
a mini
if it's
warehouse?
defined.
I can't speak verbatim for that.
We'll just call them storage units. I don't think it matters.
Well, I mean, you could have a mini warehouse that is 9 by 12, you could have a mini warehouse that is 40 by 60.
I don't know that it's addressed in there in some other.
From an insurance perspective, I apologize for interrupting. There's so many different classifications. Some people want to call a mini warehouse for boat storage, which is wrong.
Is that something that we probably need to define before we?
It's possible, it's already, well, if any warehouse is already a use that is
It's permitted.
anticipated in other.
In a general commercial zone.
Yes, it's something that's always been in there, and I think that when you don't have a definition in your statute, what the interpretive scheme is gonna be to go to the dictionary and also to general
We can put a
interpretation of what that
square footage
means.
on it.
So if somebody came to us and wanted to do, 600 by 600 mini
We can
warehouse,
say that's not a mini
then
warehouse.
we can, it'd be left
But
up
how
to the
could we say that
interpretations
if we don't
commission.
have a definition? I mean,
Well, as I said, when the definition is not contained in the statute or in the ordinance or in the regulation, you would go to what dictionary definition is, as well as what the general interpretation. You have testimony about what mini warehouse means. It does leave it open to some interpretation, but it doesn't mean the word's meaningless. It's just, it leaves
We
it
put
open
a
to
square
more
footage on it,
interpretation.
but we've already let other people have it.
I don't know if there's
When
not
you're
a-
insuring these things.
Yeah, we insure those, but there's such a, tell you, it's a broad spectrum on what, I mean, you try, a lot of people try to call everything mini warehouse and they're not.
Well, just because they say, again, there is a definition for mini warehouse. It may not be contained in the
Call it
statute,
mini
but
storage.
which makes it more open to interpretation.
Yeah, I'm sure Okanite's definition of mini warehouse is
I
real
think
different than
Shannon's.
your definition.
Well, I think Shannon's on the right track.
Square
We
footage.
should probably put a square footage on what we call the mini warehouse.
That would be a different textual change.
Right.
This is, mini warehouse is not something that was invented for
All-
this proposal. It's already in our regs.
All we're doing now is trying to
Figure out how to
decide
handle
what.
it.
Whatever
zone
mini
needs to
warehouse
go.
means, can it be
Right,
on?
whatever
Well,
mini
we- what
warehouse
happened
in
before
general
would be a
commercial, but
big
you just want it
problem
to
that
be
they
the
don't wanna
same.
do.
If it's a
Interstate
problem,
commercial.
yeah, if it's a problem that there's not a definition, it's a problem we already have. I would
Yes,
say
yes,
that.
and we have a lot of problems in that reg,
Sure
do
we
we?
do.
I
And
mean, I'm
so-
not against mini warehouses, I would like to know what we're permitting, yeah.
That's
Right.
certainly something we could talk about as a different textual change that we could originate, but
My question would be this: if it's a warehouse or a mini warehouse, if it's a warehouse, it's even better than a mini warehouse, just because of traffic wise. Mini warehouses, you have more traffic and more cars. So if we wanna call it a mini warehouse, that's awesome. If you wanna call it a warehouse, that's even better, you know?
Really,
Yeah.
a storage building is not a mini warehouse.
Right.
You can
I
put a
think
lot of
there's a
things in
fairly-
very little
a
space,
fairly
it's awful
good-
dangerous. I wouldn't want by my
I think there's a
house.
fairly strong definition in the industry for what a mini warehouse is. Insurance industry, in the mini warehouse industry, I don't think it's that vague of a term. I
Also-
don't think that the tobacco, down on the tobacco warehouses
That's
are,
not
under
a
mini
mini
definition, they're not
warehouse.
many warehouses. I don't think Okanite has any mini
That's not
warehouse.
a mini.
Plus, on the
Right.
decisions we have approved, plus on those warehouses we've approved in the past, we could go on that until.
Absolutely.
Well, but that puts a lot of the burden on you all when they come to see you.
Well, or the site development plan in front of you all.
Well, that's true.
And I don't wanna be directing the discussion, but
Well,
that's something that if you guys wanna talk about a definition for that, we can talk about adding that, but that would be a different textual change than what's proposed.
Basically, this is just whether we allow it or not.
We already allow it in other areas,
Yeah.
it's already a thing.
Is what we're doing, is it similar to what the city is doing through warehouses, mini warehouses? Or do you know?
Well, that's a different animal.
The
I would
term,
assume.
can I read what they say in the mini financial definitions, insurance definition of
Sure.
mini warehouse? The term sometimes used interchangeably with self-storage, but with differing meaning in zoning statutes. Typically, it is defined as a small storage space of 200 to perhaps 1,000 square feet.
Correct.
So it looks like a mini storage
so that would be
facility,
something
mini
that would be
warehouse
important.
is up to
We'd have
1,000
to
square
change
feet.
that.
If we were in a court case where someone sued because we said you're not having a mini warehouse, and they said, well, there's not a definition for it, and they said, you're right, but we all know what it means, and then we went in front of a judge, and the judge would have to determine what mini warehouse means in our ordinance. And that would be the kind of evidence that would be brought out in that. It's always better to define every term, but there's probably 500 terms in our regs right now that are not defined, that are open to some kind of interpretation. We know
For
that.
debate.
This is one of them, and it's something that we could definitely talk about.
And maybe
coming up
we
with
should
it.
aim at passing regs that we have done the due diligence on, as opposed to backing into our regs backwards. I mean, I have no objection to this if we could say, yeah, it's permitted in a storage facility, an individual storage facility up to 1,000 square feet.
I mean, I've not
I
been
think
in
what you
on
ought to do is
meetings.
talk about a textual change then, that in a different part of the reg, that actually defines mini warehouse for all, because obviously it needs to be the same thing for
For all
they're already
zones.
allowed, mini warehouses are. We should define them for all that, and if you have a proposed definition, and y'all wanna vote on that, we could sure propose that to fiscal court as well.
I think that's what we
Wouldn't be a
should do.
bad idea.
But Marty, in your all's opinion, this would help you all to enforce or relay better what area needs to
Well,
be put in?
we've never had anything but a regular, what we all think a mini warehouse is, come through our office. I'm like, good. I would think, if it was something that was more than what you just spoke of, 1,000 square feet, we'd say, hey, is this really mini? Is this what we mean? Now, do I have something to go to, I haven't
Well,
started looking
I
at
think
it.
the self-storage part is kind of contained in the definition
Yeah.
as well. I don't think that anybody builds any self-storage units that are outside of the parameters of what we all consider mini.
Right.
But they might, and it's a good reason to have a definition, but I don't know that it's a pressing problem. However, I think there is an issue with people wanting, perhaps you guys wanting to permit mini warehouses, whatever they are, in this particular zone, and that's what we're trying to address, with this proposed change.
Mini warehouse does not mean outside storage.
Right.
It means,
An indoor
Indoor
storage
storage.
space not to
Yeah.
exceed 1,000 square
And
feet
so-
per
so
if
unit.
you want a storage lot, then we talk about that.
If this is not right for a vote, then we should check that off and bring it back when somebody tells me they want to, but.
I'm ready to vote for it. I mean.
Well, I'm
I
ready,
don't
to-
have a
I'm ready to
problem
vote
with it.
for it, but I'm ready to make a double motion. One, that we approve it to be a permitted use in 4C. But secondly, that we add to the definitions, a
And that's
definition of what is a mini warehouse.
Do you have the then we need that language. Or do you want me to come back with a definition of that after consulting with the admin staff?
I think that'd be better.
You can't vote on it without voting.
Right, I think,
I know that.
I agree that we need to go ahead and vote on the zone change, but as far as defining that probably needs to be another,
I agree with the
whole new.
administration.
Yeah, I think we need to go ahead and define it. We have a whole bunch of regulations that are ass backwards. Sorry about that. Use some other word when
We'll all
you're
do
typing
it.
up them.
Oh, no.
But, that's fine. We need to go ahead and define it. You know, there are people.
Well, I can see in the future a problem of people wanting to have Saturday yard sales out of their mini warehouse, okay? So having things in there for it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, how many travel vans can you put in one mini warehouse? I mean,
On that, would you want, the admin staff to come up with a definition and propose it to y'all at a separate?
I think that's a
Yeah.
better idea.
And is there any, just jump onto that, is there any discussion y'all wanna have to direct the admin staff as to what the definition should be? Cause they'll have to come up with something.
I definitely think we need to tie it to the square footage.
Square footage should be
About what
part
you
of
said,
it.
well, I mean, I don't know, I'm
Is
not
the
in the
self-
mini warehouse business.
Yeah, is the self-storage component part of what we all consider is part of what a mini warehouse is? And we say self-storage, we mean for individuals or small businesses,
We
not
might wanna
for
put that in there with.
Boeing,
Yeah.
for instance. Okay.
I know, I think
So,
that's a
I
very
need,
good point.
we need to
we
go
can
ahead
vote
and
on that.
decide whether or not we're
Covered,
gonna vote.
individual interior covered
Yes, that's right, Robert.
self-storage.
Whether or not we're gonna vote for this permitted use, UC
That's
401C, 4IC.
Yes.
So,
There'd be a motion, it's just
yeah,
like
we need
any other.
I'll open the floor if there's a motion to,
What we do?
approve
Yeah.
this.
I mean, she wants a definition.
Well, that's-
Vote
that's
back or
different.
no?
Comes later.
We're not gonna do the definition.
No, they're
We
gonna
don't
come
have
back
that.
with a
So
definition.
we're gonna vote on
Just
this.
he.
Permitted
We
it,
can come into it.
2-1.
Okay.
okay, I'll open the floor for a motion then.
I
Make-
would make a motion that we approve the change in section 402.6 business services to make mini warehouses as a permitted use in UC-4IC zones.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend that, regulation or zone change. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Chris Hager?
Yes.
Paula Bianchi?
Yes.
Robert Farmer?
Yes.
Shannon Pennington?
Yes.
Alan Hatfield?
Yes.
So,
Okay, Jubal?
as recommended, that's voted to recommend as written.
Correct.
Yes.
So if we go to 3 parking requirements, again, this was something I remember was discussed by y'all at the work session. This is what the admin staff came up with from that discussion as far as requirements for parking in single-family and multifamily residential with a number of spaces required. That's more or less what that is. That's exactly what they say. It's 1.5 per bedroom. And then in multifamily, it's 2 for the first bedroom and 1 for each additional bedroom. I do remember discussing that this is a little different than what the city has, and that it require, what's that?
The multifamily is exactly what the city is.
Is that what exactly
Yeah.
what the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about.
I'm not sure about the residential, but it is for the multifamily.
I do think you're engaging in a little bit of discrimination here. The average single-family home is 3-bedroom. the average multifamily apartment that is highly rentable is 3-bedroom. So for the multifamily apartment, you're saying we want 4 parking spaces.
Yeah, but the reason for that was when we discussed a couple weeks ago was that in a single-family setting, that more than likely the other bedrooms are not drivable people if it's keeping children involved.
But they will grow up,
Well-
and as we all know, it will cost us thousands of dollars
Sure,
when they
I
hit
just know
age
that what was
16.
discussed, this is what was discussed.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
It's not any different than what we discussed.
But I'm saying for single family, why are you requiring 4.5 parking spaces for a three-bedroom home? But in an
That came
apartment
from-
complex, you're only requiring 4.
That came from some research done with the city's regs and communication in our office. And you know, I wasn't in on the meeting, so I really don't know where that exactly came from, but it's something to do, we looked at the cities and we made some modification with comments that we all made at the work session.
Yeah.
That nobody had a disagreement then.
And of course, y'all can propose, this is coming from y'all, so if you think that it should be different in any way, you can vote on that
On a
difference, and
single
that's what
family,
we-
3-bedroom, that's
should
4.5 space, 1, 2, 3, 4.5 spaces, it'll be 5. Right?
That's,
Right.
that's,
If it's
I'm a-
3-bedroom, I say,
yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of tough to do, 5
Yeah.
spaces, because you
Yeah.
can't park on the street in the county
Right,
subdivisions.
you're right, yeah.
Supposedly.
I think
Supposedly,
I think
yeah.
that's a big part of why they wanted more parking spaces, they wanted garage
And
and
it-
driveway.
Yeah, it's tough to get 5 cars.
It
You get
is.
2 in the car and 2 on the apron and 1 parked cockamamie
Sure.
on the apron, because that's what you see in most of the
I
subdivisions.
think a lot more of this was what I remember coming from, again, I'm not advocating for any of this, I don't know beans and apple butter about it, but it had to do with the single family, wanting to make sure those single family areas were not parking on the street,
But you know, on that,
as opposed to the.
on that
the-
single family thing, to create parking, you know, in a house in a subdivision, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, single family
To
residential.
create space, I mean, of course, we got setbacks, you know, so you have 2 in the garage, right,
Two
and
in
2
the
on the driveway. And the way that most of it is on these subdivisions we do anymore, the 2 in the driveway, that's about all you get. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what you got to
So-
factor in, Cannon, is now we're starting to have lots with sewer, which is
Yeah,
smaller.
need higher
size.
density, yeah.
They're smaller lots than the acre lots that we had in the past, where probably parking wasn't an issue.
But what we gonna do with them?
This is exactly what I'm
What
saying.
are we gonna do
Yeah,
with
but I
them now,
can't make more
though?
parking, because you got 12,000 square feet lot,
Yeah.
when you've got a 44,000.
And the
square
more
foot lot,
parking
it don't
places we make, the
make
more
sense.
concrete, I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
see
mean,
what I'm getting to, it's just
saying,
gonna be all
so-
parking, right?
Yeah, what I'm saying
What-
is so many of our single family residential, and I can't remember the name of the one that's out in Lancaster, right past the bookstore, you turn down and go into it, is you have 2 in the garage, 2 on the apron, and 1 that is on the sidewalk. It's hanging off the apron.
So it is on my street, and I think the idea is that they not, in single family residential, is that we not have parking on the street
Right.
at all. What's the current regulation?
Don't know.
I thought we were actually lowering it from what it was.
That's what on
We're
multifamily, I
lowering
appreciate
it
this
for
one.
multifamily,
But I'm thinking
single
one
family.
house per
family
bedroom
development.
for residential. Because, we require what, 50
Four-
foot
four
from the center of the road
cover space.
for the
Be
house.
two setback, yeah.
So they're gonna have a pretty good driveway.
Here's the residential spaces right now, single family and 2 family, 2 per dwelling unit,
Yeah.
so it's actually more.
Well, it depends on how many bedrooms.
Yeah, we actually lowered it
Well-
by half.
Depends on how many bedrooms.
Well, most houses, like you said, were 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
majority of houses being built now are 3-bedroom
Three
So
homes.
we're only
Some of
required to
them-
have 2 spots, now no matter what bedroom you got.
Now you're required to have 4.
Yeah, so you're giving
That's
them
right.
four.
Which, you know, you got 2 in the garage and 2 sitting out on the driveway, I guess that we
Yeah,
count
that's
that?
Because we
Yeah, I
don't
think
want
if
people
you
parking
do
on the
require
street.
4.5,
Count.
you're gonna run into problems, especially like in the new subdivisions we just
The
approved.
hash business ain't gonna work.
You know, where you got 4 lots per acre now, and it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
So I'd
So we making
recommend-
4 spaces. That,
With that, if you had the 3-bedroom and you did it exactly like.
Like
you did
multifamily.
It would be
Yeah. Make it
all
4
same.
instead of 5,
Space.
which 4,
Yeah.
maybe that's what y'all are thinking.
it'd be easier to put on these smaller lots, it would be put 5, but if not, you're gonna have all concrete.
If
going
there's,
over.
well, if there's, I guess the thing is, if there's 5 spaces and there's visitors, there's 5 cars, and
Well,
everybody gets to
sure.
park in a space,
You know,
There's
during
4
certain-
spaces, and there's that next car, and then they're parking on the side of Muddy Creek Road,
Yeah.
or they're parking on the side of Doylesville Road.
There's
so on
one
and so
out
And
forth.
our regulation actually does say, our regulation is not meant to imply that the occasional visitor can't be parked on the street for short periods of time. And that's what our reg says,
We
so
don't
it's
want
not, it's not that the visitor has to park here at the courthouse and walk to the subdivision. We allow them to.
We don't regulate where people can park, we just regulate how many spaces they have to do, right?
Yeah, when they.
We have a regulation in the county that you cannot park on the collector roads.
Right.
Marty, on
That's what
the
they do.
smaller lots, it's got sewer, you still require the 50-foot setback to the house, don't you?
Yes.
Which would also include the garage. So you're talking about a 50-foot wide,
Yes.
usually a double car,
Well, length, yeah.
so you're talking about parking 4 cars on that skirt, not counting anything in the garage.
No, he needs 19 per car. I mean, they're gonna have the parking, I don't know that we'd have to require them to have it though.
Yeah.
Now, some of
Right,
that
that's what I'm
50
saying,
foot
I'm
is
thinking
sidewalk.
1 per bedroom is plenty, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Which actually 25 from the property line, which is the sidewalk's involved in that too. So that's what happens, you start backing up, and you know we're talking.
It seems like the consensus seems to be building towards exactly the same for multifamily and
Yeah.
single family, which is 2 for the first bedroom, 1 for
Right.
each addition.
That's what I'm
which is
saying, I
only-
think they should be the same.
I think you're
It's
right,
half,
Robert.
it's half a parking spot, it's a full parking spot list for a 3-bedroom house.
I think
It'd be
that's good.
4 for a 3-bedroom house, as opposed to 5, which is what the proposal is.
That'd be easier.
But y'all can,
So,
is that different than, it's different than what it is now for sure, it'd still be an
Right,
increase there.
it's 2 per unit, and.
And what's
say
multifamily?
Multifamily is 1.5 per bedroom.
So this would be less for that.
For the multifamily and more for the.
But it depends on how many
How many
bedrooms
bedrooms you
are
have,
there.
yeah.
so are we leaning toward them, both of them being the same, 1.5, or both of them being the same, 2?
I would go with the same as multifamily.
All I can say is what was discussed in the
Two.
work session is what is on this proposal.
But the
Right.
proposal is just a.
It's just a proposal.
It's not even a proposal, really, it's just a stab at what could be a proposal.
Okay, well, could be, all right. So I just wanna make sure that's.
I don't think anybody was emotionally attached to the parking spaces.
I'd do 4 total and let her.
So
I'd
if
do it
somebody
like
wants to make a
multifamily,
motion,
like, yeah.
I guess that would be. in
I'll,
order.
I'll make a motion that, we, change the text of section 404.3. Number of spaces required as follows: for residential, single family, and 2-family to be 2 for the first bedroom and 1 for each additional bedroom, and for multifamily, 2 for the first bedroom and 1 for each additional bedroom.
Okay,
Second.
have a motion to that, and a second, any further discussion? If
think
not,
we're
we'll
good.
have a vote.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Shannon Pennington.
Yes.
Robert Fritz.
Yeah.
Paul Bianchi.
Yes.
Chris
Robert
Hager.
Fritz.
Yes.
Robert
I'm a
Fritz.
farmer.
Yes.
Robert Farmer, Fritz.
So they're both the same, is that my understanding?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
I got that, so if, I don't know if I'm gonna be needed to type anything else up, but if
No,
they do,
I'm
I'm
sure.
ready to do it. It'll just be a proposal from y'all to the, physical form. If we go to the part, I don't know what number it is, but construction guarantee and performance bonds, is that for?
That is a separate,
It's a separate sheet.
Separate
Doesn't have a
sheet,
number
Good,
on
that's
it.
even better. So this is, and I wanna make sure we're all on the same page, because this went through a couple of incarnations. There should be, section 316.1, and there should be a paragraph there about completion of improvements. And then there should be a 316.2 with, lettered paragraphs A through G. Does everybody have that? G was added
That's
after
all
I
right.
already
That's what I looked at.
sent something. So, this was done with a lot of input from admin. This is something that I know they've been talking, I think, for more than a year about trying to clean up on. It's both for enforcement on these bonds, and then I think another big interest is some of the older subdivisions, some issues with getting their bonds released under our current, scheme. Sometimes it's a practical impossibility under our current schemes, having to do with lots, there's more than one lot sold to homeowners, so that the developer can never have more than 75% of the lots owned, which is a requirement, with the sidewalks. And then a really big part of this was being able to create a situation where there's enforcement on the developer being liable, and county being able to call him to task on getting all the improvements that you guys have have required him to do to get the final plat approval, getting all those things done in a reasonable amount of time, and the county can go in and fix that in the future if he does it by calling his bond and doing the improvements themselves. So.
Was there any discussion at the last work session about requiring sidewalks to be put in?
Obviously, I don't, I remember a lot of talk about sidewalks. I think Mr. Keaton had talked about a lot about whether or not we should require that or not. This would require sidewalks to be put in, and when I get to talking about the last part of this, I'll talk about exactly what they're trying to do with that.
Okay.
But this would require sidewalks to be put in the subdivisions before the bond's released. That's something that wasn't really, they've added a lot of clarifying language, a lot of that italics language, certainly in 316.1, is mainly clarifying that we're not just talking about the roads, we're talking about the curbs, the gutters, the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that are also covered by the bond and have to be completed before the bond's released. Another item that's included here is an ability for the county, if the bond has been out for 5 years, Mr. Sutter?
Yeah.
After 5 years, the county going in and with the help of the road supervisor and getting a new estimate on the cost of, because of inflation, obviously,
Right.
and fluctuations in the prices of what it complete, getting a new bond with a higher, probably what we would expect to be a higher estimate, so we don't have that outdated bond amount that wouldn't actually allow the county to call it and make the improvements if that was required. So if we go to, there's actually going to be, if this was approved as written, there would be 3 ways for a developer to get their bond released. The first way would be the way it is done now. 75% of all lots have been developed and the completion of the improvements required by the final plat, but we have this clarifying language that it's all the improvements, including the sidewalks. Then he can ask for the release of the bond when he has 75% developed and all the sidewalks are put in throughout the entire subdivision. He's got to make sure they're put in one way or the other. Okay, so that's the first way. He can do that at any time, first year of the development, if he's got 75% sold and all the improvements are done. Second way would be that second paragraph down there under F. If he's gone 5 years from the date of the approval of final plat and 50% of the lots are developed, and he's put in all the improvements that are required by the final plat approval conditions, then he can get the bond released under, he can ask for the bond to be released at that time. The idea there is some of these subdivisions, after 5 years, if they've done all the improvements, there's no reason to hold on to that bond and make the developer sort of hostage to the bond because either the lots aren't selling or what we have, I think currently the problem we're having is he sold lots where more than one person owns a lot, so they're not improving the lot they own next to it, or maybe several lots are sold. And so there's some developers that, unless they go back and buy back lots from people that are not developing the lots, they'll never get to 75%. It's impossible. So after 5 years, if you sold half the lots and all the sidewalks, all the curbs and gutters and the roads, head walls, culverts are all put in, he can ask for the bond to be released in that situation. The county can take over those roads. G then offers a limited time, limited because it only applies to developers who have had their development approved prior to passage of these changes. And those developers could come in with, let me make sure, that we made changes a few times. Developers having final plats approved prior to the passage of 316F, they petition the county to release the bond and adopt the right-of-ways of the county system under the requirements contained in 316F, except that they shall be responsible for the completion of sidewalks only on lots owned by the developer at the time of the petition. So the idea there is some of our, what we're calling developers held hostage with their bond, they would only be responsible for putting sidewalks on the lots they own. If they've sold a lot and the property owner hasn't put a sidewalk in, we wouldn't require the developer to put a sidewalk in a property they don't own anymore.
If you have a subdivision and say a homeowner buys a lot beside them, just so they don't even closer to
Right,
them,
that's the
they
example.
still would be responsible for continuing that sidewalk. Because
Well-
what you're gonna end up having, looks to me like, is chopped up areas and no sidewalk.
They'd be
You're saying
responsible.
That'll have to be in there.
Not to the county, they would be responsible.
No, not the county,
Only
but
under the
the,
subdivision regs, so that's something that was discussed. And my original, draft of this just required the developer to have all the sidewalks in, there wasn't a G. And what I had discussed was the developer has powers under the subdivision, covenants, probably, he may not, because he may not put that in there, but probably has a covenant in the subdivision that says, if you buy a lot, you're responsible for putting sidewalks in within a time, you know, included on something or another. It may or may not have that in
well,
there.
I'm not sure that you could tie the sidewalk into whenever you develop the property, cause it may never be developed.
It may not be.
So, I
Some
know-
of them, there'd be no way to get that sidewalk put in by the county would not have the ability to get that sidewalk put in. That's
My
what
understanding,
this says.
am I misunderstanding 316.1? The developer shall complete all the required
That's what it
improvements.
says.
That's right.
Yeah,
But at G only applies to
Older.
developments that have already been approved under the old scheme, which just said they had to develop 75%. It had nothing to do with sidewalks. There was no requirement on the sidewalks as far as getting the bond release before.
So anything new, the
But
builder will be
anything new.
required.
Yes, any new ones,
So
from now
let me-
on,
let me-
the developer has to have the sidewalks before his bond's released.
let me ask
They don't,
Marty
the county
something
can
here.
come in and fix that.
Most of our plats, like the extension we just approved for Indigo Run, so we're saying now, even though your plat shows 5 phases of completion, you can't have approval of your final plat, even though it's 5 phases, until you have put in all the sidewalks, the drainage
No, no,
She
no.
system.
wouldn't apply.
This is bond release.
She's talking about new,
Yeah.
she's talking about new.
This is the final approval, this is release of the bond, right? Not-
Right,
not
right, I
this
mean,
one.
But we
you're
don't
talking
need-
two different things there.
You're talking about an existing one.
No,
No, she's talking
She's
about
talking
new.
about new.
Well, she means a new one, if there was one
New
in 5
construction
phases.
guarantee and performance bond.
This has
Prior
to,
to the submission of the final plat to the planning commission for approval, the developer should complete all required improvements in compliance with the development ordinance and the conditions and requirements of the approved preliminary plat. Prior to the submission of the final plat to the planning commission. So yes, this is a bond ordinance, but it says prior to, before you
Right.
can submit to me the final plat. This appears to say, you're gonna have to have completed,
that's the old, that's the language that's currently existing. That's, if it's
And
not
obviously we
italic,
have been-
it's already there.
yeah, that's part of our regulation problem. Obviously, we have inadvertently been waiving this because people have been developing in phases and they're getting final plat approval without having all of these conditions completed.
I think they have them all except the sidewalk.
I think maybe that's where I think that's right, but I think where we're adding sidewalk is where this is getting convoluted. We've only required them, what do they have to have right now before final plat approval?
75% of lots.
No, that's, is
No, no.
that final plat approval or not?
Final plat
Or
approval.
final plat approval?
No, final plat approvals, they got all the signatures and the roads and all that
Yeah,
infrastructure.
all
Right,
in.
all that
It's the
in.
road, right?
Right, the road,
It's just
and
the road.
and the storm drainage.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Well,
right.
what about,
Not something.
Not
sidewalks.
in the past, they haven't.
it says here, you will,
That's
it
right.
includes, but it's not limited, you will have all your roads. You will have all your curbs and gutters, and you will have your sidewalks, your drainage systems, your retention basins, your head growth, and your culverts. So we are saying now, before the final plat comes to us,
Yeah, that's right.
you're
That
gonna
needs to
have to
change.
put in your sidewalks,
Which I
your
think
curb
is a
and
great
gutters.
idea.
Well,
It's a good
I don't know if it's a
idea.
good idea or not, but that's
Yeah.
not consistent with what was being proposed. You're absolutely right. That
Get
needs
us
to
away
change.
from the broken sidewalk, Senator Bean was talking about.
Or at least that's, my understanding was the final plat approval would already be done, but the bond would not be released until this was all. There'd be no reason to have a bond if we.
If I release the plat, yeah.
Well, the bad thing about a bond though is you put up X amount of capital to buy that bond.
Yeah.
And they wanna see 2 to 3 years of financial statements, business and personal. And if you default on the bond, they come after you.
That language needs to change.
Yeah, that language is very confusing, cause it says
It's-
prior to the submission of the final plat to the
I
planning.
don't think it's confusing, I think it's just wrong.
No, so-
It's wrong now, it's inconsistent, but what does it need to say?
We never done that.
Yeah, so I think you need to figure out what that needs to say in terms of I agree that you should have all that stuff done, but I think you need
Well,
to.
it's very, should be straightforward, it's just more my ignorance probably on this, but what is supposed to be done before, when are the improvements supposed to be complete?
When's curbs supposed to be in, when's
Sidewalks, yeah, because they've asked me to add all this language about everything being approved, but it was presented to me as being bond. But I've still put the spot up.
Well, now, we worked in the past that in order to get a final plat, in order to be able to sell lots,
have
you had to have the
asphalt.
road,
Right.
the utilities, the infrastructure.
All that in.
That's right.
And then once it's been in and it's approved, then
Then-
brought back to this commission for
everything's
final
signed
plat
off on.
approval.
Then you.
Then
right,
we can
you
sell
start giving them a
lots.
deed.
Yeah, sell lots. That ain't got anything to do with the bond, that's just the
No,
final.
because the bond
plat.
stays, because it's within, once you get to that 75%, then you can petition the county, and the county has up to a year to decide when they want to accept it. And
You
ask you
could,
for-
Would you read do you have your code, would you read the current 316.1? Let me see where I've gone astray here.
No, I
That's
think you did
subdivision,
on that.
right?
Well, no, I'm not dead on. I would have seen that, or I would have thought that was inconsistent with my understanding of when
Okay.
final plats are approved, I think, because,
We're in a subdivision area, right?
yes, 316.1.
They gotta put in all the sidewalks.
Oh, I know that, but you're gonna have a
The way
road
that
cap.
sounds, right?
They're not in any kind of order,
That's-
I ran into
You
that.
can't really
The
confuse,
numbers are
you can't really
very-
confuse the bond with the
Okay,
final plat.
316.1.
Yes.
Prior to the submission of the final plat to the planning commission for
House,
approval,
Sidewalk, no sidewalk.
Hold on, Mark.
Hold on a second.
Sidewalk, no sidewalk.
You go read the current one and then see
Are
what
you
it's
reading the
called-
checklist?
No, 316.1,
The
what
current.
it currently says.
361, it's 316 construction guarantee, 316.1, completion of improvements. Prior to the submission of the final plat to the planning commission for approval, the developer shall complete all required improvements in compliance with the development ordinance and the approved preliminary plat. The codes enforcement officer shall then accept the filing of a final plat for consideration
Is that what actually happened?
by the planning commission.
Now,
Where, I mean, we have different
316.1.
316s.
316.1.
No, I am looking at 316.1.
That sounds kind of vague.
Page 61.
Now, one thing I noticed when I was running through all this is these numbers aren't in any kind of order. They're just kind of
Prior to the submission of the final.
randomly assigned.
Then it goes on to talk about the performance bond.
But that's a different number.
Okay,
That's
it's
it,
two,
right?
It's the 316 too.
So let me ask you, so that language says flat out, all the improvements have to be completed before final, but this was what we were calling all improvements prior to that. And one of the changes they wanted me to make was, basically it was just, they were talking about the road.
Right, and that's
That's
storm
right.
sewer.
So is that what happens right now? Is that all the improvements are done before the final plat is submitted for approval?
The road
What he
improvements
reads there
is
about
storm
what we
Yeah,
do.
done
fine.
before they can sell a
Yeah.
lot.
sewer. You can sell a lot.
The
See,
road,
that-
but what about the sidewalk?
No.
No, the
No
sidewalks are not
sidewalks.
required.
No.
Sidewalks are required as the house is built.
What about curbs and gutters?
They're
Yes.
required prior.
Yes.
What about,
Culverts and head walls,
Drainage.
So
so everything
Drainage,
inside walls
everything
is
inside.
required ahead of that?
correct.
So,
Utilities.
let me ask,
It lists it out here. You're listing it out here where it doesn't list it out there. It just
right,
says
and that's
all.
what I was, yeah, that's what they wanted to make sure I did was listed out. But I think, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, what we need to do for 316.1, which is the same language I use down here on performance bonds, is specifically omit sidewalks from that list.
Well, think about this.
Or not.
Yeah, think about this.
I love a
Think about-
subdivision with all the sidewalks.
You can
but I
require
feel so a lot.
curbs and gutters, storm sewer, and your water and all that, require that, but require the sidewalk to be put in prior to a lot being sold.
Beautiful.
See, that doesn't work. If you look at Tuscany,
But it does, because he still can't release the bond until the developer then completes the remaining sidewalks.
yeah, I know that, but you look at Tuscany, if you're living in Tuscany and you're living way out at the far end of Tuscany and you wanna go for a walk, you got sidewalk, then you got nothing. Then you got sidewalk, and then you got nothing.
The woods there.
The the old way of thinking in my world was you didn't wanna put your sidewalk in till you got all your big trucks out there, you know?
Yeah.
Got run over.
But all you have to,
But
but
you
all
can
you have to
fix
cut
them.
out, but all you have to cut out is that 24 foot.
Right, it's just a little, it
You know?
takes effort.
And then everybody else is good.
So in terms of the quality of living in a subdivision where everything's not sold, it's like, the sidewalks in the city of Richmond. You work on the sidewalks in the city of Richmond at your own peril.
Yeah.
But in a lot of our subdivisions, you take a walk at your own peril because you're not you have such patchwork of sidewalks.
You go back on the
Because
street,
so many,
you go
we
back
have,
on
we
the
have something
sidewalk.
like 4,000 unsold lots
Right.
in Madison County in subdivisions. So we have a real patchwork of
But not,
unfinished.
not all lots require, or subdivisions require sidewalks.
Yeah, you go
But
inside
1
the
to
road.
5 acres do.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about real subdivisions.
Right, yeah,
I'm not
acre
talking
subdivisions.
about, you know,
Let me,
I'm talking about
let
the
me,
10
let me
acre
put it to you
tracts.
this way though, cause these are two different parts, the sidewalks part. And I think that's really the only issue. 316.1 is only talking about final plat approval.
Mhm.
Alright, that's before a lot can be sold. No, it's not true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Preliminary plat is when they start, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's 316.1. The rest of it is saying sidewalks have to be built, or the county gets to do it anytime they want to afterwards by calling a performance bond. There's language in this that says at any time,
So we're
the
gonna,
county can say, build the sidewalk, or we're gonna build it for you. That's
So we're
not
gonna take
after
these-
5 years.
subdivisions that we don't sell all the lots.
They have to.
And
build
we're
the
gonna
sidewalk.
make the developer put in sidewalks on lots that he ain't sold.
That's right.
Or we're gonna pull his bond. Really?
That's
At some
definitely
point,
language.
at some point,
That's
Well,
definitely.
what point is it?
5 years. 5
Anytime,
years.
no, it's anytime the county wants to.
Yeah,
But
there's
that
what I'm
bond-
catching.
But that's, he knows he has that cost.
But,
But the bond cost, the developer's gonna have an incentive to get it done because the bond costs him money.
That's right.
It's
yeah,
not
but you're
free.
wanting somebody to put their money up at the mercy of somebody else thinking they need sidewalks put in. And I
That
wouldn't
is
do
the
that at all.
language, and I guess I'm not advocating for it, but
I
I guess
wouldn't do
that's the
that.
cost of doing business and making a nice subdivision that we want to
It
call.
costs enough to
You have
do
to
it.
decide, you have to
You go
decide
out
what kind
there.
of quality subdivisions you want in Madison County.
But-
You can go to places with no planning or zoning and have subdivisions.
I'm
Do-
well aware.
Yeah.
What we'd be talking about here though is, do we want the sidewalks to have to be developed? He's gonna have to build the sidewalks at some point if he doesn't get the lot sold. But the issue here would be, do you want the sidewalks built before he can sell any lots? In which case, you would leave the language just as it is in 316.1?
I wouldn't do that either.
Or do you want it, or do you wanna take that part out so that would only, the sidewalks only be enforceable through the performance bond? I think the latter idea would be more consistent with what we do now.
correct.
I think that me putting sidewalks in 316.1 is probably not what was intended, and that was,
Right, that's not something that we was wanting to
So-
do, because there's no way you gotta start selling your
Yeah.
lots before you get.
you'd have to have a whole, I don't think
Yeah.
that's sort of the way.
No, that wasn't the intent, that's
So-
not what we're.
Well,
Obviously, you can't
I definitely
afford it.
believe that subdivisions need to be completely developed eventually without making people who bought a lot on day one have to wait on sidewalk or maybe never get a sidewalk.
And the way, because we're all political.
Yeah.
And the way that, under this,
I agree
under this
with what you got
language,
there.
if enough people complain, then the fiscal court would respond by saying, hey, this developer's gonna have, he's got a bond up, he's gonna have to put the sidewalks in, it's been long enough, we're gonna call the bond if you don't build the sidewalks.
So
And he can
we're
make a
not
decision.
gonna put a time frame on that, we're just gonna let that be left that up to
That's
politics.
That's actually already the language, I didn't change that.
Right.
That's
I know,
already the
but-
way it is.
But just clarifying that, we're gonna leave that up to
That-
politics when we decide to pull that bond to sidewalk.
That's
That's-
why the
that's-
discussion is here, because they were keeping the bond up for 20 years
Yes,
and
right.
never getting out of that bond.
Right, here I am a builder in a subdivision that has 40 lots, and I've built 20 of them, and I put 20 sidewalks in, and you've bought a lot privately at your house, and a lot beside it, and you put one sidewalk in,
Yeah.
you know?
If the developer wants it, the total bond released,
He's
he
got
needs
it.
to put the sidewalks in, and he'll put that cost in with that lot.
So, to meet the 50%
I'm
at
all
the 5
for
years,
releasing
the whole
from
9
the
yards.
bond. I'm all for the releasing of the bond on the sidewalks and these things, this time thing here. I just think that when you leave it open-ended on a time frame and leave it up to somebody, just today, we're gonna do this, then I think that's a problem for whoever.
Yeah, I don't know that it's spelled out, but
Like
there's a
this is-
50%
No, this
level.
is another thing where that's actually language already, it's
Mhm.
evidently not been a problem, because I've never heard anybody complain about they're calling my bond on me too
We
early.
don't ever pull
Right.
one.
Well, then
Yeah.
I think that's the politics.
Yeah.
But that's the language already. It surprised me when I read it actually, because it seemed like.
But when you bring it up and we think about it more, I just think anything that's open-ended is left up to just, today we're gonna do this. I think that's just, I mean, that's nuts.
arbitrary is what you're saying.
Yeah, I
But
mean, yeah, we get up today and I think, you know, well, I tell you what, we're gonna pull that bond.
It's actually, it doesn't happen like that.
I know,
That's
if I'm not bad
Get back
mistaken,
close.
It would have
I
to
think,
happen.
My word, it don't.
the issue with the sidewalks, once, before the house can get a occupancy, the sidewalk has to be in.
Yes.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
that is
That's
how
how
we're
we're-
catching that.
that's how it
Once
is
the
now.
lot is sold,
Right.
someone starts building,
Yes.
they can't get occupancy of
Right.
their house into the sidewalks.
That's right.
That's right.
But if that lot never does develop, and it's just an open lot,
Right.
the guy next door buys it, who's responsible for that sidewalk?
Right.
The guy next door should be.
Depends on, you talking
The
about.
guy that buys it.
Whoever buys that lot,
Are you
comes to
talking
the
about
sidewalk.
now or?
I'm talking about to
Future.
improve what we're doing.
Here's how this would work in that situation in the future. The developer would have to make sure he has language in his covenants that allow him to force somebody to build a sidewalk when they buy the lot. Not occupancy, they gotta build it. And he can do that, and whoever bought the lot is who's gonna build that sidewalk. Because he's not gonna be able to get his bond released until he makes them build the lot on the lot they bought.
And that's what you.
The county's not gonna enforce that, the developer's gonna enforce it.
And
That should be his
restriction.
due diligence.
And a deed restriction.
That's right.
Right.
His deed restrictions to cover himself and make sure he can get the bond released, he's gonna have to have that, his attorney put it in the deed restrictions. That if you buy a lot, you're required to build a sidewalk within whatever amount of time, regardless of whether you have occupancy or not.
So in the
That covers
future,
it.
we need to make sure that that language is in the restrictions, that
We
those
can recommend
sidewalks
that.
are
It's,
covered.
it's already in it.
It'd be a good idea, but it's really the developer's scheme that's in the game.
Because we keep the bond.
Yeah, cause we'll keep the bond. That's
Yeah,
our
I
portion.
mean, that's his insurance if, to get.
If he wants to get his bond released, he better put it in there.
Yeah, in that
That's
regard,
exactly
yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
there's, I know there's some
We
lots.
can
that-
recommend it, I'm sure, I don't know that we can.
What happens to
command
those
it.
lots, if those lots have drainage or whatever on them and the sidewalks, they have to fill and do whatever's necessary to get sidewalk, it don't matter what the lot looks like.
Well,
Yeah, it needs to be
y'all
80.
have approved a development plan by this
Right.
time, and hopefully those problems are taken care of. If there's issues, then we gotta work through.
Yeah, there's typical
This
sidewalk
doesn't
drawing.
change that.
But the,
You can't be like
but a
that.
house being built on the lot does not trigger whether or not the sidewalk goes in or not.
No,
The
you
sidewalk
don't.
goes in
Well,
before the bond's released.
You
That's
bring up a
exactly
great
right.
point, because in the development plan, we probably need to require that there's a certain amount of grade that goes over 20 feet.
There is, it
You
is
know,
in there. It's
to where
it's
you
in
don't have to come
subdivision
back.
regs.
Okay, so you don't have to
Yeah, I
come
think
back and
that
do it.
language is in there.
Yeah, that's in there.
And
Yeah, those are all issues.
Curb
that I think
cuts
we
and
should
stuff
be
like
working
that, we all have to, you know.
Once all this is established, this body doesn't call any bonds, that's left up to
Right.
the
Fiscal
department.
court.
So
Right.
all we do is set the stage, require the bond, and then you all
Right.
administer the whatever.
Between us and the road department and the fiscal court.
Right.
Fiscal court is in this length, it's always been the case, the fiscal court is who calls the bond. They're the body that has the power to do that.
I can just say, hey, it's running out.
I don't know if they've ever called one, I know that one has lapsed, because of a big problem, and that's what we really wanna make sure doesn't happen.
We got one today that
Well, I don't,
expired
I'm not,
today, but we
I'm
got
not,
it.
I'm certainly not against anything that we can do to help the developers, as long as we're sure the county is covered as far as the road and infrastructure and all that stuff's done
It's,
right, put in.
it's
right.
my opinion that this helps current developers,
Right.
kinda get out from under some bonds in a reasonable way, a way
Right.
that as long as they've done what they're supposed to, they'll be out from under 'em. Right now, they can't get out from under 'em. And at the same time, it gives the county a whole lot more ability to make sure that what's in that final plat is gonna be what's actually built in the subdivision. So people that bought the first lot or the second lot can count on, when they look at the final plat, the developer put forward when they sold that lot, that's the subdivision they're gonna be living in. Sidewalks.
So,
And that's the
this-
motivation of this,
Right,
this
so
office
this will-
bringing this to you.
Will this also allow performance bonds to be released based on the phasing of the development? In other words, if they do one phase, get everything done, infrastructure. and
Right,
then
and it.
they'll be
based-
able to release that bond and,
If the phases are done in separate final plats, yes. So if it's phase 3, final plat, then yes.
That's
We
right.
We
don't
don't do that,
usually,
do we?
we don't usually do that though. We don't have 3 final plats for.
We don't do phase final plats.
yeah,
Yeah.
we do final plats.
the
When
fi-
you start selling lots, it's just be a final
I-
plat.
I
Phase
certainly
one, they
see.
go in and do all the infrastructure, and once they do all the infrastructure, that phase, they start selling lots and it's final
done.
plat.
I definitely see
Right.
final plat.
The problem is we don't need to get where they go into the development and do a phase inside the development, have a gravel road go into a you know, to a final
Right.
plat.
I don't recall that we have done a final plat where we have 5 bonds, a bond for phase 1, a bond for phase 2, you know, do you do
Yeah,
that?
We did that out there on 52 for that, didn't he?
Yeah, that was one phase.
We did like 5 or 10 lots
I
at a
don't know
time.
that, I think that maybe the bond reduced as the phases got
Okay, so you
done.
didn't
Yeah.
have separate bonds?
Yeah, it's just one
Yeah.
bond.
Yeah.
And then as you get the phase done, and then,
Well, the wording's in the bond that will show that.
right, you know, when
The
you
bond,
get,
the bond has to be approved by.
right.
Yeah. What I think on this language is, I think what I'm hearing is that 316.1 should be changed from what you guys have to take out the word sidewalks.
Yes.
Should I let y'all make suggestions? Should I put not including sidewalks in there to show that it's actually an intentional? So my language would be, including final cap asphalt,
So
curb
I
gutters.
think if you're gonna say not including sidewalks, they shall be regulated under 308.2.
With-
Because
and that actually has a-
308.2 says
yeah.
any letter of credit or financial instrument securing the improvement required shall not be released until such sidewalks are constructed. So you will regulate sidewalks under 308.2.
Well, 316.2. Let's see, it has 316.2F has sidewalks in it specifically.
316.
The bond release. 316.2F.
Yeah.
We talk about
Yeah.
how the bond can be released, that's where that sidewalks language is in there.
It's under F.
Yeah. Let's see.
Bonds remain effective
In the second
75%.
paragraph.
So looking at the department shall estimate to be the final plus the estimated cost of all additional road improvement requirements.
But it's got it covered in G2, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Under the petition, the
Yeah, it talks
petition.
about it talks about sidewalks is accepted from that, or it's different.
But you're
I
saying
mean,
in
I think
F.
there is a place,
You're saying in F, the bond shall remain in effect 75%, have been developed and completion of the improvements required for the approval of the final plat. See, if you're gonna take out.
that's what I was looking for.
If you're gonna take out the
Where's that at?
completion of the
The
sidewalk.
first line of, F, 316.2F, the first line.
But then it says including but not limited to contemplated road, and it says sidewalks is one of the things. It's in,
Including but not limited to all completed
Curbs,
contemplated roads.
gutters, sidewalk,
Curbs,
drainage,
sidewalks,
It's-
if applicable,
drainage.
it's gutters.
I copied and pasted.
Yeah, listed subdivision shall be subject to inspection.
Yeah, I agree with you, Julie. I
Okay,
think that the
okay.
intent was to leave the sidewalks out of 316.1 and address it in
Yeah, yeah.
316.2 under F and G.
Down the
so,
final plan, put
would
it
it
in
be,
the form.
I think there's another place, I think there's another place where I may have shortened the language because the language is the same that might need to be. Look at 316.2. Any final plat submitted will be accompanied by a bond in an amount not less than 50% of the amount of county road improvements shall estimate the final plat of one kind of asphalt plus the estimated cost of all additional road improvements.
I think
Isn't that bond supposed to be for all the improvements?
If you go on and put the final cap on, that's where we was having trouble, they would just do the base coat,
Uh-huh.
and then it would just sit there for years, waiting on the 75%.
Right.
Then they would put the 1-inch cap on, now we're allowing him, there was
Well, I
language.
understand that part of the front
Okay.
cap, but isn't the bond supposed to, the whole point of this is the bond is supposed to cover
Sidewalks?
sidewalks.
Well,
Here it is.
I'm assuming that, I know that it's been our,
No, it definitely is, I know that's what
Okay.
we're talking about,
Yeah.
but, so that language needs to be there, doesn't it?
Sidewalks in there.
That the bond, it shouldn't just be for all additional road requirements, I think
Improvements.
it needs to be all, isn't that right?
Yeah, I would take
Yeah.
out road, all additional.
All, so what if I say all additional requirements is set up by the county road supervisor, that's not right, we were still trying to fix some language, if you read the original one right now, you can't read that sentence. It needs to be the 1 inch of asphalt, and it needs to say, plus the estimated cost of all additional improvement requirements,
I'd list what
and
they
then it
are.
needs to be the including language, including the sidewalks, right? That language that I have in the two other places, for instance, 316.1, including but not limited to all the road,
You
is
know,
that right?
And that, at the sole discretion of the county road supervisor.
Yes. So that, I
I
think
mean,
that
we
language,
have a regulation, why should it be the sole discretion of the county road supervisor?
that actually is again, the current language, I think it has to do with his, the cost.
Right.
And if his discretion is being exercised arbitrarily, they would have a cause of action against him, but we'll let him determine the cost of that. It's still not worded very well, but it's the estimated cost as determined by the county road.
So once he goes in
He's the
there-
one that comes up with the cost.
Once the developer decides to put that power cap on, he's already done all that other stuff. You know.
It needs to say that.
Okay, if it don't say that, then but that's the way it's been.
My suggestion to you is that 316.2 is gonna include, because this was the language that Bert wanted specifically.
Okay.
To clarify that it included sidewalks and gutters and drainage.
Because right
It
now it
needs to
just
be down
includes the
there.
road.
What's
It's just
that?
the
It's
road.
the way it is today.
Yeah, well, it
It
needs
just
to
says the
include
road,
sidewalk.
and it needs to have all that other stuff in there, that was a big part of it, so.
Okay.
I need to add that to 316.2, if y'all make take action on this tonight, I would suggest it be done with that clarification language in 316.2, and with omitting sidewalks in 316.1.
I think you should clean this up and bring it back to the next business meeting. We have an awful lot of scratch out and add, and scratch out and add, and
I
scratch out.
agree
and
with
add.
you.
I do
I'd rather
agree
do
with
it
what,
that
I
way.
do agree with what
Yeah, I
what
agree
you're
with
saying.
but it's
yeah.
just, we got too much scratch out and add.
It should, there's certainly not a rush on.
Yeah.
I don't know that anything there's a rush on, but, I would rather read just like it's gonna read before y'all
Since-
vote on it.
Since this has come to us, do we need to act on this for like either the
There's
table?
no action needs to be taken.
Okay.
This, our purpose is for y'all to make recommendations that are being
Worry
started
about
with
the
you guys or
motions
not.
that have already been made.
So let me make those changes and.
Did somebody make a motion to accept?
Yeah.
Not this, but
No,
the
these
prior
two.
ones.
Yeah,
Oh, the
those are
prior
good.
ones I think are fine.
Fine, okay, you're just talking about this.
Yeah.
So are
Okay.
we, on E, F, and G, is that, we determined there was nothing to change on those, right? I don't remember any discussion.
No, I think it, yeah.
So.
G is the new one.
Yeah, G is the one that's just gonna be for limited time, for prior
Prior
approved,
to.
because we know, and the rest will be for everything going forward.
Okay.
I'll make those changes and bring it back whenever y'all want to talk about it again. All right. So then back to one, which is a whole lot of changes to, site dimensional requirements, mainly having to do with, density of units. And I think it basically just obliterates building heights from our code. So we can kind of go in order. The first one is to change the text of 4025 and 4025-2A and 4052 to, I don't know what the current maximum density is. It's like,
Is it like 7?
Can I speak to maximum density? Can I speak to that?
I can speak.
I do
You're
not
in charge,
think,
not me.
I do not think that we have done due diligence on multifamily residential. We do not have a definition of multifamily residential in our regulations. We just, at this point, say 6 units per acre. If you look at the development codes for Shelbyville, Mount Sterling, Moorhead, Lexington, Louisville, which I did, they are much more fleshed out on what is multifamily residential. Currently, we are low density, 6 units.
Yeah, I would rather just, my part is only to say what the change is, so
Yeah.
I'd rather get that out than whatever y'all say is fine.
Okay.
The change is from 6 to 14.24, and I think the 14.2.4 is, all that is Richmond's,
Right.
and that was, what was proposed to be brought to you
And
guys. That's all
what
I
want
have to say.
speak to. That is very high density housing, which you do one of those down there, and one of those down there, one over here. We have an obligation to the citizens of Madison County to do our due diligence. And part of our due diligence is to understand that in 202, we are to facilitate the orderly and harmonious development, regulate density of population and intensity of land use, and prevent overcrowding of land. Our present regulation, under other counties that have very fleshed out what is multifamily residential, anything over 10 is high density. And then most of the counties have very high density, which is over 15 units per acre. We have not really had an assessment of the effect of putting 14 apartments with, let's say, 4 people per apartment, on a piece of land. Cause that would be, right now, we say 6 units, 4 people to the apartment. That's 24 people per acre with 24 cars, with potentially 24 cars and 24 parking spaces. We want to jump to 14 apartments with 4 people, which gives you 56 people per block of land with 56 parking spaces. But we also say 5 acres minimum. So all of a sudden, you've gone from 120 people to 280. We have not assessed the effects on traffic, parking, lighting, garbage. If you look at the parking requirements, 4 parking slots. A parking slot is 9 by 19, it's 207 square feet. If you have 280 parking places for this 1 acre building with 14 apartments, that's 41,000 square feet of parking on a 45,000 square foot lot. If you look at our old regulation, we say in the old regulation in terms of open drain space for the 6 apartments per acre, you're going to reserve 0.5 acres for open usable space. So that's for 24 people. You're reserving 0.5 acres for green space. What are you gonna reserve for 280 on 5 acres? You know, we haven't done our due diligence. Rental vacancy for Kentucky for 3-bedroom units is 5.89% annually. For 2-bedroom units, it's 7.9%. It is not in the interest of any developer to build much 2-bedroom units. They're gonna go for 3-bedroom. So we need to, before we jump in and say, let's do high density housing, we need to look at what do we need to do for green space? What do we need to do? Have we really thought through parking? We can't park within 10 feet of a building, and we can't park within 10 feet of a collector road. We have said that in our parking lots, we have to have 24 feet of ingress, egress, and we have to have 36-foot wide collector roads. Well, this building's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, unless it's going up, 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 up. None of the development plans that I have looked at omits building heights. All of them say, if you don't want to comply with our building height of 30, most of them are 30 feet actually, come to the planning commission with a well-developed development plan and explain to us why you want a 40-foot building or a 50-foot building. Now, places like Lexington and Louisville have ultra-high density housing, which is your high-rises. You don't tend to see that in the planning of Clark County, of Winchester, of Shelbyville, of Moorhead, of Mount Sterling. So I don't think at this point that we really have done our due diligence. On the comprehensive plan, one of the things that was identified as a problem for the 2015 comprehensive plan, inadequate water pressure for fire protection in the areas of the county. So all of a sudden, 14-unit apartments, 5 acres of 14-unit apartments, and we already have a water pressure problem. The county currently is cranking out about 10 million gallons of water a day from the Ben plant. Have we really looked at the 8-inch lines that would have to go to? And this sounds like it's going to be mostly around 627 because we need sewer. The 8-inch lines that have to go to these buildings. And do we have, and are we cranking out enough water to support 14 units per acre in minimum of 5-acre developments? And I think for duplexes and condos, it's more than 5 acres. The other thing we determined was a real problem was the lack of sufficient fire and police protection. So if we all of a sudden say to developers, have at it, put in 14 units per acre, and we're out around 627, we have not addressed that issue of fire protection, ambulance, police protection. So we're jumping into something that the mission of the comprehensive plan says, please don't do this. One of the fastest, an option in the past has been to wait for things to happen and hope that through solving problems in a piecemeal fashion, we can somehow end up with a better situation. that approach has not worked in the best interest of the citizens of Madison County. So do we really want to jump in without a detailed analysis of what can we do? Do we want to go from low-intensity housing to high-intensity housing? I'm certainly not against going to 10, which is medium-intensity housing, and seeing what happens. I think we need to know, though, about what do you do when you have a 4-inch line supplying an 8-inch? And that's what we require in our regs for high-density housing, is 8-inch water lines. Do we have water lines that are going to supply 8-inch water lines without starving the folks down the road on the 4-inch water line? And if we don't have all these 8-inch water lines already in place in the areas where we do have sewer, which we need for high-density housing, and should we start by actually getting some definitions of high-density housing and what we'll permit?
Yeah, I do agree with what the doctor's saying. I think that we do need to increase the volume of our housing and the sewer and all that's available. Not knowing what this new sewer plant at Waco is going to do, because that could explode that area in an apartment development. Not knowing the water's situation, and they do fire flow. We don't have a full-time fire department, do we? Is Waco a full-time fire
No,
department?
it's volunteer.
And then there was 627.
I agree there.
They say more
I do
cheap.
think that we need to take a serious look at it and increase it, whether or not 14 is the right, maybe 10 or whatever. But I think we need to take all these things into consideration. And that might be one of those things at the DRT, when you get them all together for a DRT meeting, and saying, listen, we've got sewer now in the county. We've got sewer down at Battlefield. We're gonna allow some high-density development eventually, and we need your all's input. Can you all handle it?
Can
If
you
we
produce
approve
enough water out of
400
that
units in
plant
Waco, can you
for
handle
this
it?
kind of-
Well, that's what the DRT is for.
Are there any site development plans that are approved without approval of fire flow?
Not without a waiver.
Is that something that's required, or?
But you're gonna have to do a lot of waiving if you're gonna require
doing
8-inch lines, and
Yeah,
we
I'm
don't
not
have
doing
no
it.
8-inch
Well,
lines.
I was
so-
asking if without y'all approving a waiver, are there any site development plans, regardless of density, that are approved without the fire?
You just approved
chief
2
say
for
that
the
this is-
churches. You just approved 2 for churches.
It was different. Now,
I
that's
don't
not
think
the
that's,
same.
I'm sorry,
no, I don't think
approved.
that's different
I'm
because you
sorry,
have a
approved-
massive number of
approved-
people in
approved
building.
what?
A
Approved
waiver
what?
on the
Waiver
fire.
on the fire.
You
You waived
approved, yes, fire flow. You
decided
have
that it
very
wasn't
large
required.
buildings with very large numbers of people that
But
are not
with-
required to be sprinkled
Well,
because they're.
if this board's gonna waive things, then that's
Yeah.
a waiver.
That's, yeah, those are
Uh,
waivers.
Here's what I would suggest to you on this. This number is, as far as I'm concerned, out of the hat. It's
Yeah,
with
it's
the
on-
city, I think the idea is, I think, I'm not a mind reader, I sure didn't come up with this number. The
Right.
idea is that the city shouldn't, developing the city should not be the only place that high-density development can be done. I believe that in these particular suggestions, though, you're gonna get if this board doesn't take action, this is something you guys wanna have input on, you're gonna get a recommendation from the fiscal court, and whether you recommend it or not,
It's gonna get posted.
something's gonna happen.
Well,
Something, I don't
And
know,
I'm not objecting to it happening.
I
I'm
know that.
objecting to, we have an ethical
And my-
obligation
Okay, but
to know what we're doing.
this isn't about ethics, this is me giving you some advice, if you want to have that input, sooner rather than later on this particular item, might be your best bet to have your input. Because if you're talking about putting it, going through DRT and going through, if it takes time, you may not get to have as much input, which I think you want to have, than if you take an action fairly soon. That's my advice to you, if you want to have input on it.
I'd have to agree with the doc on all this stuff. I mean, the thing of it is, even the fiscal court or whoever rules whatever, surely they would arbitrarily say what the city's doing right for the county, let's go. Because, as she said, we don't know that.
We don't know what, until you know where the development's gonna be, you don't know the answer to any of those questions.
Well, we know it's gonna be
You know?
on sewer.
I mean,
We know it's gonna be
yes.
on
I
sewer.
know,
That only gives you two
but you don't know if
locations
it's,
right
you,
now.
you can't say, well, we need to know if it's an 8-inch line there. Well, we don't know that till somebody requests it.
Yeah.
So-
They're
Okay,
gonna
and
build a
they're not
parking.
gonna request it till you have an 8-inch line
It's,
there.
it certainly seems like this is providing.
You know, yeah,
that
I mean,
you actually
really.
taking on tonight, so my only advice to you is, if you want to have your input, if you wanna make a recommendation, instead instead of just reacting to something that is sent to you.
I think we definitely need
Something
to
should be
increase
proposed
it.
and worked through.
I'm not sure if that number is where we need to go.
Oh,
But
no
I do
idea.
think we need to increase it but with everything else and that, you know, the city's justification for annexation, the sewer, fire flow, police protection, that's a big chunk
Of
for
course.
annexation.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be different.
We're
for
gonna
that,
get, we're
unless
gonna
you
get
wait.
the same size density in some of these areas where we got sewer, and we don't have that support. They may have to increase it, that's gonna add more on the county. I mean, they're gonna
I
have to
see
have more.
sheriffs everywhere where I'm driving.
Right. But I do think
Come
that we
out
need
there
to
to
re-
Kingston, son.
I see them out there.
Yeah, I do
too.
think we
Rare,
need to-
rare. They got a car sitting there.
I think we're pretty comfortable saying it. Does anyone want to make a motion as to any change in maximum density for multifamily residential?
I like to make a motion, we accept that first one, number 14.24,
So that there's a motion.
because we can deal with the 8-inch water line because we can require that.
Can you deal with making
Yeah.
more water? The city now is able to make 10 million gallons a day, and they're using 10 million gallons a day.
I think there is a motion.
Well, and that is to be discussed at the DRT, if they can supply the water or not. All they have to do is say, hey, we can't supply the water, so we can't do this development. So you don't kick things down the road on a bunch of what ifs. You make the requirements, and if they can meet the requirements, you let them do it. If you don't meet the requirements,
So,
then you don't do it.
so if they came back to us and said, well, not gonna do 14, we're gonna do 12, then we would consider.
Anything, anything the fiscal
Once
court.
we approve it to a zoning of multifamily housing, can they say, well, we got sewer?
Anything the fiscal, talking about fiscal court?
I'm talking about us, if we approve the 14 thing, and the developer comes in and we said, you can't get that, you can't do any multifamily housing, because you can't get any fire flow or anything.
That'd be part of the site
It'd
development.
be part of the DRT.
Be
that
part of
would
the
do it.
developer getting it
It
there.
just, it would not be prohibited by the zoning, site dimensional requirements.
Yeah, they can lower it if they wanted to. They can put 12 on it instead of 14.
If they got it.
That would be their
They
choice.
want the requirements.
You know.
They have to meet, you still have to meet fire flow requirements and those
Yeah.
things, I believe I'm right to say.
Which
Hey.
goes back to what you were saying.
Hey.
If you waive those requirements, that's a completely different.
And
ballgame.
and for the question
I
of
think
fire
There's a lot
protection,
of pressure to waive
Once
those.
again, I think you're going into it backwards, because, you know, we had a very long discussion about the school and traffic on 627, and how dangerous it was.
Remember what they
mine-
told me? They told me that they can do basically whatever they wanted.
Right, and basically,
They're right.
do you have
Yes,
a,
they-
do you
Yeah,
have,
we're right.
do you have a different danger
I don't know
on
what we talked about.
627 if you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
really take a hard look at traffic?
And
No,
I-
but you were dead on it that
Multifamily
night.
I'm not the person in charge of the meeting, but there has been
But
a motion.
I don't, I
Well,
don't think we should go into something backwards. And that's essentially by saying, okay, you can do 14.
So
We're
Well,
going
and
into it
I think
backwards.
going into it backwards is saying, well, we don't have fire and police protection there. But guess what? Once things are built and you've got the tax revenue for that, then you add fire and police protection for it, because you built a $50 million piece of property here and you got the money for it. You don't add fire and police protection for something you don't have yet.
So if I second that,
it'd be a vote.
we, of course,
If
The
the vote is
conditions-
no, then nothing would happen.
the conditions have to be met, just like everything
Everything
else
else we
comes
do.
before you.
Yeah.
Then I'll second that.
That's already existing.
That's what I'm saying, that's what
Without
I'm
doing any waivers.
Yeah, because the waiver part's what I'm concerned
We
with.
have a motion
And I'll
to
second.
approve the change to 4.2 or.
14.2.
Yeah, and we have a second.
Yes.
From 6
Right,
to
so-
14.24.
Yeah, so is there any further discussion?
Just the fact that, the waiver part, we would be making bad mistakes if we waived anything.
We have a motion to approve and second. No further discussion, we'll have a vote.
Well, I'd like to discuss.
Okay.
You know, like I said, you don't add fire protection for a place that doesn't have residents
That's
up
correct.
front. You don't add police protection up front. You add that after a development's happened, when you got the revenue for it and the need for it. You don't add it first. You add it after you need it. You know, so that would be a gross negligent action on the county's part to spend money on police protection and fire protection for something you don't need. You add that afterwards. So, we're requiring 8-inch lines, we're requiring, things for them to do. If they meet the requirements, then you proceed.
And DRT's gonna discuss all that.
Yeah, if there's not enough water flow, they'll let us know.
Are you gonna give 280 people a half acre of green space?
Well,
Well, guess what, is there a half acre of green space in downtown Lansing?
after our discussion, I think there's things in
That's
place.
ultra high density.
I think there's
That has
things in
to be-
place that prevent, in rural areas, any high density. Even though we do have sewer and Waco, the infrastructure's not there yet for anything else, for fire flow and all
And
that.
the infrastructure
So it'll be
is the
very
biggest
limited,
deal.
it'll be
That's
very
right.
limited.
And we talk about green space a lot, but you know what? People can choose where they want to live.
No, they
If
can't.
they
I
don't-
mean, it depends on their cash flow.
They're gonna choose where they want to live, period. And if they want green space, they can find a place that's got more green space. If they wanna live someplace that doesn't have an acre of green space, it's up to them to do that.
Yeah, but now
you
she's
know?
got some good merit to that.
She does, but we can't put in regulations
Before the fact.
so strict that you never have development.
I'm not saying put the regulations in, I'm saying know what you're getting into before you put your foot in the alligator's mouth.
How much green space is currently required for multifamily?
0.5 acres,
0.5 acres for
6 units.
every 6 units?
We're not changing that though.
But we're talking about them going up,
So,
not
so if it was
out.
14, then I wanna make sure, everybody should know, I wanna make sure, cause I don't know. So if it was 14 units, you'd have to have 0.5 acres for every 6 units, is that right?
No, you're taking the 6
What's
units
0.5
out.
acres? Okay, it's not 14.
You're taking the 6 units out and making that reg a 14 unit.
So it'd be 0.5
Part
for
of
14.
changing
Okay.
green space.
0.5,
So it's not
14.
changing, it's just there's more people using the 0.5 acre.
Okay, we have a motion, second, have further discussion. Is there anything else to be said before I ask for a vote?
I'd like to know Marty's opinion.
Well, I've got, it's gonna be in the areas that we have the infrastructure, it's as simple as that. It's not gonna be countywide, until there is infrastructure that's available. Granted, the green space comment, it makes logical sense to me. I don't know what the intent was, I was not in on these meetings, I'm just trying to represent the codes office. This is what's been proposed, there's been work done, there's been some talk with other individuals, developers, county officials.
Well,
This is what they've come up with.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also, the fiscal court will be discussing the same issues. And, you know, they're planning what's gonna happen in this county
Right,
too. So I think we have things in place right now that can prevent anything from happening that shouldn't happen.
Correct.
As far as our regulation. So, you know, I'd be in favor of changing it. So,
Okay.
any further discussion? If not, we'll have a vote.
Chris Hager,
Yes.
Paul Bianchi,
No,
Robert Farmer,
Yes.
Shannon Pennington,
No.
Alan Hatfield.
Yes.
Okay, and then if this to go to the fiscal court as recommendation in Jubilee.
I will, I'll draw that up as.
Now, they have, I mean, they have the authority to
Throw it out.
adjust it whatever they think.
If they adjust it, I believe we'd have to come back to you because it would be a different proposal. I think they have to act on what you guys voted on.
Okay.
And because any different proposal will have to come back to you guys for recommendations.
Yeah. Well, they have to have 2 readings on this?
It's just like any other ordinance.
Yes.
So these are
It's just like any other ordinance.
Okay.
So I believe I looked over things and 3 through, little Roman numeral 3 through 13 are basically taking away height restrictions. I don't know exactly. I can't say that I know exactly what the intent was on all these. I believe that interstate commercial has to do with the ability to have a Holiday Inn or something like that, not the ones proposed, but I believe that was part of the discussion. At our interstate spots right now, you just basically couldn't have one the way that these places are usually built because of the 3-story height restriction, I believe, 30-foot height restriction. I think that's right. And I assume, again, that's sometimes very dangerous, that multifamily residential height restrictions being taken away would be part and parcel of 1 and 2s increasing the maximum density. I would assume that's.
Yeah, because if you're gonna get the green
Makes
space,
sense.
you gotta go up.
That's
But it
right.
was-
But
it was sent to me, we started off with that, and it was sent to me, that on all these elements, height restrictions, heavy industrial, light industrial, I think that kind of
I can tell you what all of the other counties do, is they have a height restriction, but in their regulation, they say, for developers who wish to be outside the height restriction, they can come to the planning commission with a full development plan and explain why, and ask for a waiver on height.
You know, then they get into sprinkler buildings, and
Yeah,
then
and
they try their best to stay away
they
from
don't just
that.
automatically omit it, they just say, come to the planning commission with a full development plan and talk to us about it.
When you start talking about density and height, you're definitely gonna be talking about sprinklers.
Yes, and then it kind of regulates itself.
That's correct.
It definitely is a big fire issue. I know
Yes.
that, y'all.
Yeah.
It's really an
All
issue
kinds
with
of
the
new
height.
regulation comes involved when you
Yeah.
start going up.
I guess the other issue besides fire, it also has to do with, something Dr.
Vapors.
Knapp talks a lot, which is our view, what we're seeing.
Light,
Uh,
air.
And that's certainly an issue in all these areas, as what you're seeing.
But as a totality, our general commercial is not that large. I mean, it's on certain roads. It's not scattered about. You all done a good job of keeping it, you
Yeah.
know, on those major
But,
major highways.
this would apply I mean, because all these areas are including neighborhood business, planned mixed use, and multifamily residential. Yeah. And what's the one on the list?
So there is no restrictions on building height, but there is
There
different
would- there are
requirements
now.
based
There
on
are
height.
restrictions now.
There are now.
Right,
But
right.
yeah,
But
this
those-
would,
Get a waiver.
I don't know that this takes away, I don't know that this is every, classification for site dimensional. These are the ones that were provided to me that we're wanting to take away. So there may be something where there still are, I assume single family residential, does it have a height?
It does.
So it still would stay in place.
Right.
It's just a
It does.
multifamily
30 or
residential.
40 feet, I can't
In
remember.
these other areas as well,
Yeah.
which tend to be.
And, you know, we are a commission that is replete with waivers. I don't see any big deal for a developer to come to us with a detailed development plan, and ask for a waiver on height.
That's true, that you can waive those things. I guess, again, I'm not advocating or voting, but I guess the less a statutory scheme which is built in with the idea that we can have waivers is more arbitrary. And at some point, it can be too arbitrary.
Create some litigation, could
You can, and it's always, when it's possible, you're better off, having things spelled out for people in one way or the other, so they can depend on the language that's in the statute, not.
Was there any mention about how much the height they wanted it to be, or just make it no height? Was there any
It was
mention at all?
submitted to me to omit the language,
To
so
omit it?
so I assume that means,
So I mean, it's indefinite.
yeah, that's what was,
As far as the building's concerned, it's taken out of your hands once it reaches a certain.
Certain square
That's
footage
correct.
Goes to state.
goes to state.
Number people.
Unless we ever ask for expanded jurisdiction, which we don't have right now. Not in the building, we do in HVAC.
as far as what I understand to be the immediate, impetus for this, it would have to do with, I assume, the multifamily residential and interstate commercial. So, some immediate, interest in developing it right now would be prohibited by our language.
Yeah.
30 feet is what, 2 stories? Can you
It
build
could be
2
3 on top of the ground, but if you got put part of it in the ground,
So that's,
you get basement 2 stories, it'd be 20.
3 stories is the limit on the multifamily.
So the motion would be to remove the reading of the restrictions that we currently have in our guidelines.
Yes, and you can take them one piece at a time as well, but the idea, what's being proposed is to omit that language altogether.
To omit the language
Any
altogether.
height restriction except for residential.
Well, there may be others.
There may be, okay, but I was.
Except
It's,
for residential.
explain to me briefly, I can't remember, the planned mixed-use development, is that, mixed use like multifamily, commercial,
Single family.
maybe going into,
It's kind of.
I don't know if we have any areas that are
Lakeview
planned mixed use
Estates.
development. It's a great idea.
Well, maybe on Clay Lane,
Yeah.
Clay Lane has, you got the neighborhood commercial, multifamily, single family
Twin
residential.
Lakes. out of-
Twin Lakes.
Twin Lakes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of uses.
Yeah, do you see anything as far as your department that would hinder you all if this is omitted, I mean,
I think there's, I
It's
assume
every
that
5 stairs.
the reasons you have height restrictions are, and I don't know any others, would be safety concerns and, aesthetic concerns.
From the viewpoint.
somebody building a skyscraper where you used to see the sun.
Correct.
Something like that.
Is there any more discussion? If not, I'll ask for, the floor for a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion that we, change the language to read, we omit the, wording about limited to, unlimited on the height restriction.
And you're taking all these at one, as a one?
Take them all into one,
Okay,
because they still have to come before us.
okay, so, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second motion?
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, we'll have a vote.
Well, yeah, I have a little discussion. I don't see much difference in that versus the other motion, since what we're trying to do is put us in a position where maybe we can develop a little bit using common sense of going up to save that green space. And it's going to be in areas that would be qualifying for that. And we don't want to have a single family on that.
Okay? Any other discussion? If not, then I'll call for the vote.
Alan Hatfield,
Yes.
Shannon Pennington,
Yes.
Robert Farmer,
Yes.
Paul Bianchi,
Yes.
Chris Hager.
Yes.
So I think that's everything. If I understand things right, and we'll make sure, because I'll do a little rework on this. Items, Roman numeral 1, which is the site condition requirements, 2, which is the uses allowed, and 3 have passed in some form. 1 and 2 as written. 3 is, not as I wrote it out, but what y'all voted in favor of was the single family, two family, multifamily all have the same parking spots. And on the construction guarantees, I'm gonna change the language as we discussed today and, get that whenever they wanna put it back on here, it'll be ready to go back on there with the language we discussed, which is, taking sidewalks out of 316.1 and adding the clarifying, specific language of everything being included in 316.2. And, if that cleans everything up, then that would be fine. What I would rather do, since I'm doing this for y'all, is send it to all of y'all after I get done with it. I would rather done that with this too, if I knew it was coming out before you. I didn't actually know that. I thought it was going to physical court. I'd rather you guys look at it way ahead of time. So, Marty, if you don't hear it, you can send me an email with everybody's email on it.
Okay.
As soon as I get it done, I'll send it to everybody, and then if you guys see something that I screwed up, then just let me fix it ahead of time, so you get a clean copy, beforehand, or I can address it. I don't think it's fair ever to stick all that language in a packet, expect everybody to have any kind of idea what's going on.
Now, the only thing you're gonna do now in, 316.1 is take out the sidewalk.
I'm just taking out sidewalks, but then I'm taking that language that's in italics on 316.1
Yeah.
and including sidewalks, and I'm putting it in 316.2 where it talks about the, what the bond's actually gonna cover, 50% of the coverage.
Correct.
I think that there may need to be some other changes made to that too, once I get with Bert, maybe. I think that's still clear. The language in that right now is actually not even a sentence. I have to figure out what it means when I wrote it. But I don't think I've done a whole lot better. I think I've still left it where it's a little ambiguous as to what it, is trying to say with the county road supervisor's discretion.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you, Joe.
Good job. Marty, is there any new bid to come from the commission?
No new business.
Okay, if not, then a motion in order to adjourn.
So moved.
Robert Farmer,
Yes.
Alan Hatfield,
Yes.
Paul Bianchi,
Yes.
Shannon Pennington,
That's what I was
Chris
gonna-
Hager.
Yes.
I was waiting for this call, now I'm gonna do it.
Thank you all.
Let's get the park.
Let's have a little struggle. I need a vendor if you could.
I want to be the first person to do it.
How's he doing?
Wake up.
Is he healing normal?
What's going on with
I assume they'll keep popping up everywhere.
You might be using that word law a little
Oh,
bit
perfect.
loosely.
How many of those you got?
Here you go.
Give me that $20.